Hi, I'm back with a video of something that I've been kind of thinking about in terms of The Walking Dead beta and my game that I'm going to be playing with the youth over the summer. And so I gave them the choice of what they wanted to play. I kind of opened up everything Free League to them because this is my system at the moment of choice. And they decided that they really wanted to play The Walking Dead. I think a lot of them were interested in the zombie aspect and think that they're just going to be going around killing zombies. Well, these young people are going to be facing a lot of emotional crunch, as it were, because they're going to have to deal with their own personal emotions and deal with um, conflicts. A lot of the conflicts in The Walking Dead, and I'll speak about this in another video as I review the beta, are really challenges that are based on not just die rolls, but how do you interact with people in an apocalyptic situation. And so the zombies, as we've seen by AMC's The Walking Dead and spin offs, that the greatest challenge is not the zombies themselves, but how we interact as people. And that means that you've got to have a really solid background. Well, looking at the PDF of the beta and looking at the various archetypes that are provided, um, I found myself wanting. I found myself not happy that we were getting pretty much generic free league characterizations. And you had the doctor, you had the kid, you have the soldier, the police person, and I just felt like this was, if I had offered this to players, no matter if they were older or younger, that they'd be kind of shoved into a particular archetype, which is one of my complaints about other fantasy systems. And so I didn't want that. So I've done a lot of investigation about uh, life path systems. And I've come to the conclusion that for myself, and maybe you should consider this, that a life path system is an absolutely brilliant way. Now, many of you have already explored this in different ways around your table. A session zero is not simply what character you're going to play. I'm going to play a thief, or I'm going to play a wizard, or I'm going to play a mage, or I'm going to play a fighter, a barbarian, or a police woman, or a or a scientist, or a space cowboy. It goes beyond that. I'm in my job. I work a lot with systems theory and a combination of the fact that we are have genetic predispositions to certain aspects of our lives, but we also have a large amount of tabula rasa, which is a clean slate where our upbringing certainly has an impact, where our parents' influence on us uh, determines many of our interactions in social dealings. And let's face it, in job choices, uh, it can have an influence. And so I thought, well, I want to have these characters fleshed out. This is a modern day, uh, you know, sometime in the very near future type of scenario where uh, the Walking Dead is placed in a time frame that we can relate to. Therefore, we should develop in our session zero characters that are much more fluid and dynamic. And the only way that you can really do this is through a life path system. So I have chosen a couple of examples. One is from War Stories, which is not a Free League publication, but it is a Life Pass system. It has a Life Pass system in it, and War Stories based in World War II, Allied forces, and so they have a Life Pass system that I felt would work in this situation. It was close enough. The other one, and you may be thinking, well, he's going to go to Traveler. No, Traveler is absolutely kind of the granddaddy of all Life Pass systems. And if you're not aware of that, you should be, that's really the quintessential Life Pass system. And Traveler, if you're interested in space, the Traveler Life Pass system is just absolutely brilliant. It's perfectly done, but it needs that milieu, that genre to really make it sing. With War Stories, it tied in enough, even though it's the 40s, it tied in enough with the current situation that it can definitely work. So I'm combining them. The other one I'm going to use, just very, very briefly, is Mythic Japan. And this is Mythic Japan Yukio-e, which is Japanese setting for Vaesen or Vasen. This is an absolutely great resource for anybody interested in kind of the Edo period and the period of transition. If you love anime and you like the fleshing out of those type of stories where you have yokai and all sorts of various different East Asian or Japanese monsters, as it were, or spirits, this is a great resource for that, and it's on Drive-Thru RPG. I've printed it out, and I think that this is a great example of character creation because it starts right off with indicating, okay, well, here's your character score, here's your status, this is what it's going to mean in terms of how you command authority, and then and how much information you can gather given your status. So it starts with the status of your character. It goes into mementos, and it develops from there, where you can really explore. Now, it does give, the academic, the warrior, so it gives archetypes, but you can develop these further. And I think that that is the charm of this game, as well as the historic information that is provided, because that really is the focal point of this publication, is that is the setting itself. And I think for Vaesen, just like in The Walking Dead, you are the setting. You, as an individual, that's your world. Whereas with Vaesen, the world is this dynamic between changing from a rural agrarian society that relies so much on farming and traditional methods to a technological advancement that really we can only compare it to maybe 2001 when the camera became available on a phone, and all of a sudden, our worlds were changing as we weren't carrying around big lugging Olympus and Canon cameras, but we had the ability to take a quick shot with our phones, just like no longer using film and waiting, 3 days, or in some cases a few hours, for your photos to be given to you, and see whether or not they they were good or blurry or whatever. Being able to look on a screen and see if your shot is good was very innovative. Um, it's the same type of kind of massive leap, and even more so with technology. So Vaesen, it's the world that's the character, and here in Mythic Japan, it's the world. On the latter pages, page 71, um, Thomas, the creator of this, goes into the life paths, and you roll a d66 for the cast, and then you roll a d6 for the upbringing, and you write down your attributes and your skills and your resources. You roll for the great shift table, and where your cast is in that, and what happens with the Meiji period, and how the changes in the Meiji period happen, and how they've affected you. And then, of course, the profession table. Again, you're rolling a d6, and then a life events. So once again, you move from young to middle aged, and I think if I turn the page over, that you go to elderly, old. So a life path system brings you from various stages in your life up to a particular age. And I think Mythic Japan does a great job of this. But again, it's particular to Vaesen, and it doesn't lend itself as easily, say, because of its particularity of Japanese society and the history, that, again, it's very setting based. Excellent for this setting, but not as easily transferable to, say, modern day Atlanta. So, great resource, and spurred on a lot of thought, because it was that publication that made me really think about life path systems. Then I was exposed to Traveller, watched a lot of videos for Traveller and Session Zeros, and character creation videos, and I realized I really don't want to play a game without running through this life path system. So I did a thing which some of us are starting to do. Instead of Googling, I'm Chat GPTing. And I asked Chat GPT, so I ask it the question, explain how tabletop role-playing games can employ the use of life path character creation systems, and name 10 examples. Well, I'll go through the 10 examples first. Cyberpunk 2020, this game allows players to use the life path system to create characters with detailed backgrounds in a dystopian cyberpunk setting. Well, I don't have that. Then it mentions Traveller. It mentions Shadowrun with a priority system, and life modules with a family background, education, and previous employment. Again, futuristic. And I haven't really checked it out, to be honest. And so that's one where I am interested in. Twilight 2000. Twilight 2000, I think, is a good game. I'm not too sure if I'll ever play it, but it does have character generation system to determine nationality, background, military experience, and more. I didn't use that system even though it was modern day, because it seemed to be more geared towards the military and not broad enough for me. But I did look at it. It talks about Rogue Trader in Warhammer 40k with the background packages. I own that game, and I don't see that in the same way. So that's one of those weird things. I do have Stars Without Number up on my shelf. And again, it's a science fiction. RPG with a background package system, role origins, careers, and events. Legends of the Five Rings, set in feudal Japan, inspires a path system. Now, I've played Legends of the Five Rings, not the FFG, but the one before, the one with the beautiful dice. Well, they might not have been beautiful, but they were certainly unique to each clan. Um, Absolutely, it was fun, but I don't think that it was as fleshed out as as I like. It says that it character, social status, upbringing, family, and more. Yes, but it's much more limited than, say, Mythic Japan, or certainly War Stories, definitely Twilight 2000, and with Traveler, at least in my experience. It talks about fading suns. I don't know anything about that generation system. It does talk about GURPS, and GURPS for some people is like the granddaddy of them all. They consider it better in many ways uh, uh, than Dungeons and Dragons. Uh, I've never played the game. I've owned the game. I've looked at it. It seemed, excuse me, very crunchy for myself. And I think I was more interested in it because it had the Prisoner um, uh, expansion, or the Prisoner TV show module. And that really got me excited because it showed a picture of the village. But I don't know much about that. And then Burning Wheel. And again, I don't know much about the Burning Wheel Life Path system. Chat GPT, the authority on all things crazy, gives says that these examples highlight the versatility and the creativity of LifePath character creation systems and tabletop role-playing game. Of course, blah blah blah. They're using the babble that they know they can do. It's almost like a news report. They provide players with the opportunity to craft characters with their engaging narratives and solid foundation of immersive role-playing experiences. And it essentially says the same thing in the second paragraph. It allows the system allows players to make meaningful choices that shape the characters' histories, skills, and motivations. Now, that's what I was looking for. That's essentially what I think life path systems give us, is the centrality of our characters in a world that is, of course, fictional. But I think the caveat has to be that we look at it from an outside perspective. And this is very difficult for us. But instead of, and what I mean by that is, instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to give examples from my past and my history and my, like, try to go beyond. So what I'm looking for from my players, because I've already given them questions, is I want them to come to the session zero with a character concept that is not just, oh, my father was, you know, a fisherman taking after their own father, or my mother was a dental assistant. Okay, I want them to think beyond their own lives and to really be imaginative about, okay, what's out there in the current world. Maybe there's somebody who works at a convenience store. Maybe there's somebody who is a garbage collector. Uh, we don't, or maybe the person is retired and is in the altar guild, ironing cloths and fixing candles, and that's pretty much their life. We always ascribe kind of our archetypes to the bosses of the job, the priest or the police person. Well, why not the clerk of the police department, the secretary or administrator? Why do we have to always go to the top? Why can't our hero be like many heroes, the ordinary person? I think that there are many examples of movies where the underdog is is the character that grabs us. And so why do we think that we have to already be the hero of our own story? So life paths give us an opportunity of kind of fleshing out ourselves. And I think that we should begin by our parents, our upbringing. And in a lot of ways, this ties in with Mythic Japan, where it talks about the station, where you fit in society. And of course, that very much would have depended on your family, your parents, your siblings. Where do you fit in that kind of line? So here in War Stories, you have a group concept that you choose. Um, that's not the same in The Walking Dead. You have a group of characters that will be attached to a group of 5 NPCs. And again, I'll speak about that in another video. So your upbringing. It explains here in War Stories that, and this is on page 29, that at this stage you will identify your PC's key attributes using to determine your ability score and your 3 skill points and choose 1 talent. And then it gives pre-war experience, and then the mechanics are you allocate 1 skill point or 2 and stuff. I'm not interested in the allocation of the points. I don't want to be that detailed. I want particular broad strokes, not based on min-maxing, not based on what am I going to get for this, but who am I? And who can I be? Who's my hero in this story? Who is my environment? So it's a personal history, and so it talks about pre-war experience. It talks about the warriors and character flaw, character virtue, and then of course your buddy and your appearance and stuff like that. So in this, it starts off with a nationality. This is important because of the context of the war. And so then it goes to upbringing, and you can be a street kid, rural or small, from a rural or small town, an industrial working class, a military family, intellectual or affluent. Well, I eliminated military family, even though we're in Atlanta, and we all know that the military is very much a employer in the States. I just didn't want constant soldiers, because everybody would want to have, the perfect use of the gun and the perfect ability for scouting and everything else. I didn't want them to choose that, so I didn't give them that option. And then it really fleshes out 6 options for each of these. So rural or small town, working class, military, intellectual. So let's look at working class. So the 6 options are, your parents worked in the back-breaking construction industry, making little money and just barely getting by. Tragedy was bound to happen, and your father was killed in an accident, something your mother never came to terms with. You had to look after her. That's the first option. I'll read the 4th. The local railroad and rail yards were a workplace for your father and a place to explore for you. You got into trouble so many times that the pain of your father's belt was a small price to pay for the adventures to be had. Well, okay. It's set in the 40s. That was a reality. I grew up in the, well, I was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s. That was a reality. Um, I'm not introducing that with the group that I have, because times have changed and there does need to be a sensitivity to um, to our cultural situation at the moment, especially if you're playing a game in the culture of the moment. Um, but you get what I'm saying with this is that it's giving you options to look beyond just, you know, base. I mean, we don't come up with the ideas as much for our character. It's like, here's what I look like. Here's my gun or my knife or my lasso or whatever. And here is my raison d'etre. So my whole purpose is to go out and kill zombies. Well, what happens when you're in a social situation where you're dealing with a woman in a wheelchair, um, who is a great asset in terms of her technical ability, but somebody has to push her along in order to keep that benefit that she offers the group, but half the group want to kill her off because she's slowing them down and they have to protect her and waste all their energy on her. She can't take care of herself. How does that type of character that's just myopic open up? And I don't believe that the Walking Dead beta is going to provide a life path system, but I do wish that Free League included life path systems in all of their publications as an option. So here, um, later on, after all of these options, you get other experience, and maybe it's a minor politician, a physical trainer, park ranger, a lifeguard, uh, a union enforcer or union representative, a restaurant employee, government worker, dilettante, uh, artist, a writer, an explorer, an inventor, a traveler. I mean, why couldn't someone be a blogger? You know, let's say they're from Japan and they've come to Atlanta and they're a streetwalker. Well, I don't mean it in that way, but they're walking the streets with their gimbal and they're filming and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, the apocalypse happens, and you've got this wildfire virus which is taking over. That I think is an excellent character creation concept, which is not going to come by looking at the archetype options that are given in the Walking Dead uh, universe by AMC, by Free League, by. So this is, I really am excited to see how the young people interpret this. Now I will go to, and I have to open it up because I wasn't prepared for that. But I'll just give you some of the questions. First of all, I made it very clear. Remember, I'm dealing with a bunch of 14, 15-year-olds. I made it very, very clear to them that this is not real life, that you play your character like an actor. I think in The Walking Dead, you need to have that mindset uh, for distance. I did say later on that there will be uncomfortable moments, and that we will spend a certain amount of time after the session to debrief the emotional realities of what you faced, and the decisions that have come out of it. I think that with playing with younger people, if you're dealing with something like this, you probably should have a decompression part. We talk a lot about X cards and lines and veils and stuff, and I understand it a bit more now by playing online. But I do believe that if some people are able to push through their discomfort, and remember that this is a game, that the GM owes it to the players to offer an opportunity after the session offline, um, to debrief openly and honestly about what may be difficult. Are GMs psychologists or therapists? Do they have training in these type of things? Absolutely not. And I'm not suggesting by any means that uh, the GM should take on these roles, but I do believe it's important that they receive feedback, and that individuals who are players can get at least state how they felt during the game. And I've been using that with the young people, and like even just playing Coriolis and Vassan, that it does help because they decompress about what their favorite moments were, what scared them, what got them thinking. So I think that that's good even for adults. It doesn't matter what your age is. So this is what I ask the young people. I said, okay, what's your age now? And I gave them an option between 12 and 15, 16 and 18, 19 and 24, 25 and 32, 33 and 45, 46 and 60, 60 plus. So I broke it down into those categories because one is, okay, middle school. And so I asked them questions. What was your childhood like? What's your favorite free time? What do you do in your free time? What's your favorite subject in school? And I did say, why have you chosen this? Now, I did say to them that I want you to add info until you reach your chosen age. So if somebody chooses 25 to 32, I'm hoping that we have at least some indication of the progression of a person from middle school, and then 16 to 18 high school, and then 19 to 24 first job, university, laying around playing PlayStation all the time, being 25 to 32, sitting at home playing PlayStation all the time, playing role-playing games all the time, living off of my parents' money. Maybe they've got a job. Maybe they're working at the local gas station. Maybe they have their first real true job coming out of university and are working as a researcher. Maybe they are an apprentice at a law firm, uh, or they're a barista. I want them to think, and I think this is how life paths really excel. I didn't take this from any particular area. I came up with this by myself, just thinking, okay, for the 19 to 24, are you in trade school, college, or university? What are you studying instead of school? Do you work at a job that doesn't need schooling? Do you work part-time to pay for education? Are you just at home not working? Why? So it kind of gives a push to think. And and later on I say, do you have a partner? Do you have children? Later on, why choose 60 plus? Are you retired? Do you still work? Are you a boss or a leader, professional, four-person? Because at 60, maybe you have excelled in your job. Maybe are you just a regular worker? Are you in a relationship long term? Adult children, grandkids? What do you do with your free time? A lot of young people, even people my own age, are not really thinking about retirement as much as we should. And what are we going to do with our free time? Just as an aside, I can tell you, um, I've had a lot of experience with older people, probably the majority of my life. So uh, easily for 40 years. So for 40 years, I've been dealing with older people. And I can tell you that the people who are well are the people who continue to work well past the age of retirement. Whether it's going down to the Legion, or working in their churches or their local nonprofit groups, or playing golf or doing something, but keeping active keeps you alive. The ones who have the most issues in many ways are the ones who retire and then find that they are sitting around, as a famous British TV program was called, Waiting for God, sitting around just waiting to die, essentially. And I've seen both options, and sitting around waiting to die is is horrible to see. Um, it could be played by a character in this game. Uh, that hopelessness, but does it make for a fun game? So you got to balance it out, right? So a session zero will enable everybody to articulate what their character is and maybe give and take some things. So on the next page, I say, okay, your family are not dead, at least before the wildfire virus, and they're not in a coma, because I found that all of these young people just wanted their parents dead. Like everybody was an orphan. I was thinking, what? Why? So nobody's allowed to have parents who are dead yet, and that's just my prerogative as a GM to say to these young people, don't go there. It's just why, why, why? So anyway, so I've asked, what does your mother do? What does your father do? And I had to make absolutely sure in the question, this is not, in bold, your real family. What does your birth father do? And I made it clear, birth father. I said, do you have step parents? What did they do? How many brothers and sisters do you have? What was the order of the birth? Where, um, you know, uh, you may provide what they do for a living and their age compared to yours. What is your issue? Okay, now this is a particular term utilized for The Walking Dead. What is your issue? So it's a constant problem. I thought that it might be helpful for them to have the seven deadly sins. Now, I've taken out lust because of their age, and I'm not a big fan of overly using sexuality in games. It leads to too much confusion. I think that it has its place if you know your people, and if it's been very clearly discussed, but it's far too easy for lines to be crossed in real life with game life, and I just think that it's much more complicated. So I haven't included it, and that's just, again, my prerogative, and given their ages. So this is what I listed. I said this list might help you develop gluttony, greedy, laziness, anger, jealousy of others, arrogance, such as too good for others. So I gave them those type of options to help them flesh out what their issue may be. Um, didn't talk about addiction, though that would be in gluttony, but addiction is a medical thing. It's not an intentional thing. So uh, I didn't want to go there. We'll see if any of them come up with that. But since the wildfire virus walker event, have you stolen? Have you murdered a non-walker? Have you disrespected someone? This comes from the Taoist and Buddhist understanding of what is considered a sin, as it were. And so I wanted to add that in as well, because those are considered very major offenses. A lot to do with hospitality. What's your drive? A drive in Walking Dead is, again, a particular mechanic. It is what gives you a purpose to live, what gives you that push to keep on moving in spite of all these zombies around you and all the horrors that have been committed by people who are just simply trying to survive. And so I just ask them about that. And then, what do you look like? Describe yourself before the event. and now, because there may be a definite change. Uh, you might be wearing a suit beforehand, and now you're wearing a shirt. Your suit is ripped up. Maybe you know nobody's doing their laundry. Not sitting around doing your laundry. I mean, people, you're trying to survive. So, you know, what's the difference between the looks? Have you shaved? Have you let yourself go? Have you not bathed for a long time? Like, what is the consequence of this event that has changed you? Because there's no way that any of us are going to be exactly the same now, post-apocalyptic event. And then the examples where I gave sample flaws, and this was from the War Stories path table. So aloof, distant, angry, greedy, pessimistic, patronizing, petty, gullible, arrogant, blah, blah, blah. And then virtues, again, accepting, devoted, energetic, caring, fair-minded, patient, relaxed, sentimental, decisive, helpful. So these are just, and I quoted those in the previous sections to say, look at the flaws in terms of your in terms of your drive, and with your issues, look at your flaws. So, and then gave them these kind of options for for working class, intellectual, affluent. And then there's other experiences. So I have the blue collar, the other experience. I have the academic, and it talks about, what's your field of study? Is it humanities, science, law or business, engineering, medical, Ivy League? So it's it's it, it it just warrants kind of pushing. So these are some of the ideas that I had. I wanted to share them with you about this game that I'm going to be playing, but also about generally the life path system and how the life path system is really just, I think, a great way, no matter if you're playing high fantasy, gritty fantasy, Blades in the Dark, Vaesen, Coriolis. Uh, the only thing that probably is Morkborg. But Morkborg is, for me, Morkborg is not a campaign. Morkborg is like, I'm sitting down tonight, I want to play a role-playing game. Let's roll up characters and let's just kill the shit out of everybody. That to me is that. I have back the Oriental or East Asian offering of that. So we'll see what that is like. I do have a copy of Morkborg, and I have another copy still in shrink. But I've only played it once. Great fun, but it is what it is, right? It's like 10 Candles. I mean, 10 Candles is not a scenario that you're going to go on and on and on. You've got a limited time. 10 Candles, you're done. And again, a very emotional response to your ultimate demise. And you go through your character as you're playing. I think that there's lots of room to do that in a campaign with The Walking Dead, but I think you have to start with a framework. And I think that if every game had at least an option for a life path, that it would really change the way you play the game, and not in a detrimental way. Remember when Arneson and Wesley came up with the game, the Napoleonic game that they were playing back in the 70s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s, that the game that they played was built around the characters who were leading the Napoleonic situation. Their characters were being fleshed out as they were exercising the movements, and it stopped being a tabletop war game, miniatures war game, to becoming more of a what's the individual thinking, what's the dialogue, how are the negotiations going. It almost moved to a more diplomacy, the game type of option, not in its mechanics but in its kind of negotiation, character development. And then, of course, it went to fantasy, and then the mechanics took over, I believe, to such an extent that the character became the character because of the dungeon delving. And it wasn't until later that you could really explore your true self, your character, when you had wilderness adventures and when it moved into a more Middle Earth-ish type of situation. When you were just in a dungeon, it didn't matter who the hell you were and what your parents were like, or you know, or what your backstory was. You were there with a sword, and you had the purpose of getting loot to gain experience points. And that was your whole purpose. In modern gaming, it really has evolved to be a true expansion of the art of storytelling. And storytelling really is the main emphasis now, I think, of modern gaming. And even with OSR people, I think that life path systems are appealing. And as much crunch as you want, statistically, numerically, in the system itself, you want to have that type of option that War Stories provides, and certainly Traveller provides, where you get numerical bonuses for your crunchy rules. And so that's appealing. With The Walking Dead by AMC Universe, whatever, it's a very long name. It really, again, I can't emphasize this enough. It is a true modern game that has more to do about internal conflicts, conflicts of relationships, and not the zombie threat. The zombie threat is the backdrop, and so to not have a life path system in this particular game seems to be very, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on life path systems. I think they're great. I think they should be everywhere. And maybe you've played with a life path system. Maybe you're interested in life path systems. I've given you lots of examples from ChatGPT, but I've also given some of my own. Mythic Japan is a great, if you love Vaesen, Mythic Japan is fantastic. And so is War Stories. I don't have the book because I probably won't pay it, but I bought the PDF. And I'm very, very happy with it as a resource. So, have a great day and take care, and I'll see you the next time, probably with the same clothes on as I'm probably going to do my Walking Dead video next. Take care, bye.